guess what? Sony is going third party, and you're going to see Ratchet and Clank on Xbox. You're going to see The Last of Us on Xbox. You're going to see Spider-Man on Xbox. And I say hashtag whole slate. King, who is 98% right of the time, agrees with me, and I'm not the only one in this community that does. You know why? Because Sony's a corporation that right now has a trading stock of $24.63. Do you know what Microsoft stock is trading for? And thanks to King David for pointing this out yesterday. $514 per share.
What? What an idiot. Oh, what a loser.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another Xvault gaming video. Xvault here, and today we're going to go over a segment of thoughts from the vault. I think enough time has passed once again. We have to revisit this, and it is, in fact, in regards to exclusives. Do they matter? Do they not? They do matter. We're going to explain why and go over that in tandem here. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump to it. All right, so like I was saying, what we're going to do is get right to the theme of things here. It seems like every now and again, every few months, I have to revisit this topic of why exclusives matter. When people come and argue till they're blue in the face, well, I refer them back to these videos. They never hear from them again. I don't hear from them again. There's no more rebuttal. So I like to make these segments, make sure it hits the algorithm the best that I can so we can, explain what the piece of this is, why this matters, why exclusives matter, why this isn't just a grifter status type of situation. It is factual why exclusives matter. So let's start off here. This is very apparent, and this happened to just come out at the time of recording, basically, in regards to something Jez Corden from Windows Central just stated. As you can see here, he states, launching games on other consoles could weaken the Xbox platform, according to Jez Corden here, right? If Xbox has no exclusives, if Xbox begins giving up or begins creating an inconsistent world where you can expect to see games like Hi-Fi Rush or Sea of Thieves on other platforms at some point, it devalues heavily the entire Xbox proposition. Every game that Microsoft announced would become a debate over when or if it would come to other platforms, even if Microsoft professes only some games would come, or that it'll be a case-by-case basis. The lack of transparency is maddening enough, but it's not hard to follow the probable outcome of these policies, and that could be the death of Xbox hardware platform in its entirety, right? I think this goes true with any platform. This is just something that came my way just recently, right? So the same thing, right? We're talking about Helldivers 2 going to Xbox consoles right now. It's a games as a service. So guess what? The narrative behind every single PlayStation first party game now comes out to the fact that, hey, is this next game coming? It becomes less and less about the platforms. It becomes less and less about the games, the quality and stuff like that. But we're going to get to that in just a moment. But again, if Nintendo ended up putting out their Mario games elsewhere, what consensus do we have in regards to why you should pick yourself up a Nintendo platform if the handheld mode doesn't work for you, if you don't care about that, if you want more power, you're going to lean towards a platform of choice that would provide more power, right? That's just how that's going to be. So that's just a case-by-case piece of it here, right then and there. Now, let's start from the beginning real quick, just for context's sake. Where did this narrative come from that exclusives don't matter and that games should be played everywhere? I'm going to give you a guess. Which platform, which ecosystem stated this first? You're probably going to say, Xbox. No, it wasn't Xbox, guys. You want to know who did that? You want to know who started that conversation? PC elitists, right? Those are the ones that stated exclusives don't matter. Exclusives shouldn't matter. They shouldn't be a thing. It's not consumer friendly. These games should be everywhere. Why should they be everywhere? Because PC, they're entitled. The self-entitlement is there. They want those games. They want to be able to pirate them. They want to emulate them. They want them available to them, period. Even if they did end up buying that game, they want them available to them. Right? They're the ones left out. They always wanted to be part of the console war talk. They wanted to be part of the console talk, period. Because people don't talk about PC. When we're talking about great exclusive games, who's not talked about? PC, right? If it's not day and date on a PC ecosystem, guess who's left out in the cold? Guess who's left out with that sense of FOMO? This has been a thing for many, many, many years, and a lot of people didn't catch on to this, that the PC crowd is the ones clamoring for exclusives not to be a thing. They want it to be an open platform. I get it. It's not, quote, consumer friendly in their eyes. But just remember, not too far before that, they didn't want anybody jumping into games like World of Warcraft. They don't want console peasants jumping into that. They don't want them playing any of those PC games. We get to play this first. We get to play the alpha, beta modes and all this stuff before they're released and announced on consoles, if at all, right? So that's where that started. But again, you weren't far off the mark if you were saying, hey, Xbox fanboys were saying this, right? You're right, just after that mark, right? They're saying that, why? Well, they only started saying it as of pretty recent. What that recency is when Xbox games were no longer available exclusively to Xbox consoles. It was okay that they were sharing the spotlight with PC. They kind of buddied up, the grifting, the shilling, all the above. They kind of buddied up in that system, and, PC was able to kind of grasp onto that because, like, hey, they're giving us stuff. Let's stick up for them. Also, it's easy to get that fanboy crowd in here as sheep and all that stuff, right? That's how that works. So in tandem, that worked. But they started stating exclusives shouldn't matter. They don't matter. You're right. Things should be everywhere. Since Xbox games are everywhere now, PlayStation games should be everywhere now. Exclusives don't matter. As a matter of fact, even some of these Xbox fanboys are stating that Nintendo first-party games need to be everywhere as well. They're going to be the last on the boat to be divulging into their first-party games going to other platforms. I assure you of that. That I can 110% guarantee you, if it all ever happens. Because, wow, stubborn Nintendo is stubborn Nintendo. That being said, let's get to the next part of this as to why exclusives matter right on top of that, right? People view this right away as it's not consumer friendly. And you're right to a point. It's not, quote, consumer friendly in the short-term side of things. Why does that matter? It matters because it breeds competition, right? Competition is needed. You need exclusives to bring out the best quality work in between different companies, in between different developers, not just in-house stuff. Nobody's sitting there. I guarantee you, if you're looking at Insomniac and you're looking at Naughty Dog, do they compete with one another in a way? Sure. But not in a way of like, guys, we need to show why this is the best ecosystem out there. These types of games, we bring it as a team, right? Insomniac, Naughty Dog, anybody else you want to put in there, right? They continue to bring that quality. If you don't have that quality in competition, that can leave loopholes, that can leave holes in general. That's going to result in less quality down the road. It's just going to happen. The less competition, the less need there is for that quality to come out and be pushed, and to push ourselves and to push the devs right together to really ooze out all the talent possible. That's what that does, believe it or not. That's what that does. Also, this can affect, there should be no excuse whatsoever on the Xbox side of things before they went full on third party. There really shouldn't have been. That's a case of mismanagement. You're like, probably, hey, why did Bungie, not Bungie, but 343 Studios, why did they screw up so bad? Why was Halo Infinite such a huge miss? Well, mismanagement. Mismanagement put them in a bunch of different directions. They didn't hold them to the fire. They didn't hold them accountable. They wanted to push for games as a service multiplayer side. They wanted battle passes, microtransactions, all that stuff, which is all well and good if you made the game as great as it could be. They missed that mark. They even stated multiple times, if we lose our way with Halo, we lose our way with Xbox. And lo and behold, they lost their way with Halo and they lost their way with Xbox. And that's why we are where we're at with the addition to Game Pass, right? But ultimately, why does this matter, right? We're sitting here and we can talk about the exclusives on Nintendo as well. They're hitting it out of the park once again with Donkey Kong Bonanza, with Mario Kart World, right? Stuff like that. they're continuing to bring it. I mean, these games are bringing the highest quality out there. It's just fun. It's not always about power. It's not always about graphics, but it is about quality and gameplay, right? You can add in the seasonings. You can add in the storyline. You can add in the graphics and the power and the resolutions and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, games are meant to do what? Games are meant to be played. Gaming means you're gaming and playing. So if you're having fun gaming and playing, that's trick number one, right? That's project A right there. You're wanting to have fun. It doesn't matter about the rest. And then it coincides. You can start building this recipe. Now we have this great quality game. Now we're adding more great quality games to this ecosystem. Guess what, guys? I got to get this platform to do so. If that platform and ecosystem is then, in fact, successful because of those quality games and everything's working together, management's working together, marketing's working well, you're able to produce these great quality games within a budget scope, within a good time scope, and that's where we're at trying to balance to today, right? AAA games where they're getting too expensive, they're getting out of hand, you got to do the marketing. You have to find a way to balance this. You got to balance the budget, you got to balance the scope of things, you got to balance, and something's got to give, right? Just because, again, like I alluded to, the best graphics doesn't necessarily mean the best game. We've had a lot of great looking games out there that are boring, flat, slow. I'm going to bring up Hellblade 2, right? Amazing looking game. Possibly an okay narrative at best. But guess what? Guess what we're missing here? Fun and the gameplay, right? Imagine if they scaled back what they were owning for realism quality visuals, and they actually scoped that back and over into gameplay and actually made this really fun. Everybody would be talking about it. It'd be a change of things. But again, mismanagement over at Microsoft Studios, really, Xbox Game Studios. They're missing the mark there. If those games hit the mark and they kept those games exclusives, and again, we're going to cut off Game Pass in this conversation, okay? Because that was a big factor as to why they had to change, and move and pivot and all that stuff there. Game Pass was a big factor of that. So they just needed to stick to the core, make great games. What did they do with the Xbox 360 generation? They made great quality first-party games that were must-haves, so you wanted to go out and buy that Xbox 360. You wanted to go out there and purchase and play those games, whether it be single-player games, multiplayer games. They had timed exclusives. They had the best at the time gaming infrastructure as far as an online network. They had the best of everything when it came down to it, minus the Red Ring of Death fiasco, right? They had everything under the sun. And why? Because they had the games, the exclusives. No one batted an eye. We had exclusives, guys. Let's go all the way back real quick. Just as a reference, we had exclusives from Atari to Nintendo to Sega. All sorts of different systems, to Jaguar, which didn't help it out because it didn't have enough games and enough great quality games. However, the competition was there. Year after year, generation after generation, we continue to go on to all these exclusives. Now, these exclusives also breed excellence. It oozes talent and competition and quality. That's what it does. It matters. People that want to sit there and say, it doesn't matter anymore, and they don't see the grand scope of things. They just don't. They should be everywhere. Then everything would be a PC, right? We would not have consoles. The plug and play method would not be much of a thing. You might get some sort of a situation where some sort of PC maker might dive into that, but again, you're getting close to the console market thing, and it's not going to succeed. It's not going to get the best out of that game. These console games, a lot of these work fluid and fluently right out of the gate, whereas the other ports or even simultaneous releases on the PC, because it's such a different platform, has all sorts of issues you have to compensate for, whether it's the hardware that you have in your PC. So you have to compensate for that. So they have to make this game work for every iteration out there for a PC, whether that be shaders, graphics settings, frames, whatever, right? You have to constantly upgrade, or you're going to brute force through that, or these game devs for those games are going to have to try and compensate somehow, some way. And sometimes those often lead to broken ports. They're not as good quality. Again, depends on your rig. But we lose the scope of quality towards consoles. We get innovation through what we got through Nintendo, right? Love it or hate it. Yes, they had a miss with the Wii U generation. But ultimately, and yes, you can even argue the fact that the Switch 2 is just a barely beefed up Switch 1, but it is options. It still is innovation, bigger screen. They're going to improve upon that. With the PS5, we got one of the greatest controllers of all time, in my opinion, which is the DualSense. I love that friggin' controller. It's amazing. We have all sorts of options. With Xbox, they gave you a couple different entries. We all know why it didn't work out. Game Pass. However, if they stuck true to form and actually had the good quality exclusives in the games, I believe they would be a step ahead with two different price points. Again, it's not all about powerhousing. It's not all about graphics. It's about gameplay, having fun, how great of a game it is. And again, we can bring up Expedition 33, a small studio bringing that game to every platform. Performing well, an amazing story, fun gameplay, etc., etc. Guess what? If that was locked down as a timed exclusive somewhere at the very minimum, and Xbox had that locked down as a timed exclusive at the bare minimum, it doesn't matter. It runs on the Series S. It runs on the Series X. People are going to be talking. People want to be talking about, I have to have my hands on this game. I have to have my hands on this game. Success. Xbox continues to have success. Xbox continues to bring competition to PlayStation and in a way to Nintendo as well. Unfortunately, Nintendo's kind of off in its corner, like I mentioned before, to where they have their own corner of the market. They're kind of doing their own thing, it seems, right? They're scaling back those first-party games as far as budget. They don't have to powerhouse the graphics because the games are hella fun. Everybody likes it. No one can knock Smash Brothers Ultimate, right? No one can knock Donkey Kong Bonanza. If you don't like those kid-like games, then okay, understandable, right? You have other options out there for sure, but you can't deny that's fun. You get your hands on it, it's fun. Same thing with Astrobot, right? Yes, it's kind of kiddie-like, but it can get very difficult in the later stages and so on and so forth, but the presentation can seem maybe not super mature, right? I still love it even at my age. Love playing through it 100%, even all the free DLC that came with it. The game is absolutely special, and word of mouth gets around. People are going to say it's not as successful, it didn't sell as much as it should have. It's still a fairly new IP. This is not Mario we're talking about. We're not talking about an established IP like Master Chief, Halo, Uncharted, The Last of Us, God of War. This is a fairly new IP. This isn't Donkey Kong, right? This isn't anything of that sort. Give it some time to breathe. Word of mouth will happen. Stick with it. Stick to other iterations and entries and spin-offs, you name it. Stay true to form. Ultimately, guys, exclusives matter because that competition gives you that quality, believe it or not. If these are available everywhere, I guarantee you're just going to get some stuff like, and no knocking off to Ubisoft necessarily, but you're going to get a yearly iteration of Assassin's Creed. You're going to get yearly iterations of Madden Football and FIFA, and even though those sell well and do well, they could be better. If they were locked down to a very high talented dev team that had to squeeze in and give you innovation, if they had different licenses out there to compete against different football franchises that made football games, right? For the NFL, I guarantee you're going to see a step up on the Madden gameplay versus also whoever else is going to make the next NFL licensed football game. If it was yearly, every other year, whatever the case is, guess what? Competition breeds success. You're going to have them actually step up rather than, hey, here's a new tackle animation. Here's some new sweat beads on them. Here's some more, just the bare minimum stuff, right? And don't get me wrong, the stuff still sells because it's still popular, but we could get better quality games, right? That's just how it works. Word of mouth happens, sales happen, success happens. The less and less competition we have out there, folks, it's just not going to work out for you as a consumer in the long run when we're talking about great innovation, great games, longevity in the industry. It's just going to be a bunch of slop. You see a bunch of that slop everywhere on Xbox stores, PlayStation stores, Steam, obviously, stuff like that. So much third-party slop and brain rot games and all sorts of stuff out there that it's just really sad to see. You think it's out of control now. Just imagine if there wasn't competition in there to keep things in check and just stuff would be flushed out. I guarantee you we would not get the likes of DK Bonanza, Mario Odyssey, the next God of War, The Last of Us, Uncharted, all this stuff, right? You would not get these quality games. Ghost of Tsushima, Ghost of Yotei, Returnal, Saros, Intergalactic. The list goes on and on and on. These are quality games that are not going to be as high quality tier if we didn't have competition in there. Exclusives matter. This is a hobby. This isn't a necessity. All right? It's just the way it is. Exclusives matter. We keep it that way, keep the competition strong, and we're going to win as consumers in the end. That being said, I will wrap up the video for now. Definitely, if you have any thoughts, comments down below, I'm sure you all do, especially those, and tell me why you think exclusives don't matter. Explain to me why you think exclusives don't matter and why that would benefit the industry as a whole. Do you think there'd be as many consoles out there, as many options to choose from out there? If you want the best of all worlds, with waiting for some exclusives, then I would suggest getting a PC. Is that what you want as a PC? Let me know. Other than that, I would love to hear a good reason why games should be everywhere, as opposed to all the reasons I gave in this video. Would love to hear about that. That being said, we will wrap up the video here, guys. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Game on. And exclusives matter. We'll see y'all next time on the next Xvault gaming video. And until then, guys, take care.